Hey everyone, it's Bazza here from Living in Beta. Today we're going to be taking a look at the long-awaited Elden Ring, providing our initial thoughts and first impressions. Was it worth the hype? How does it hold up to previous titles? Can you still leave hilariously unhelpful online notes? Let's dive into the game and find out. First up on our journey into Elden Ring, it's gameplay. Perhaps the most important aspect for From Software fans. Elden Ring builds upon what came before, whilst providing new elements which serve up a fresh experience as well as facilitate the larger world. In terms of traversal, players will now have access to a spectral steed named Torrent. Torrent allows the player to quickly and smoothly explore the much wider expanse of Elden Ring's world. The steed can be summoned from a simple push of a button, as long as you have the spectral steed whistle equipped. Players will gain access to Torrent fairly early on. Sticking with movement, we also now have a standalone jump button as well as a crouch walk. The jump button means we can more easily explore vertical environments, whilst also given a few extra options with combat, but we'll get onto that shortly. The crouch walk on the other hand allows for a more stealthy approach akin to the same method employed by Sekiro. This allows the player to strike from the shadows, skip enemies entirely, or take enemies on one at a time for a more considered approach. A fresh method compared to the limited movement options of previous Souls games, Sekiro excluded of course. With combat, there are a few notable additions. First up, we have summons. These are found throughout the world and can be used to provide an edge in combat encounters. In my short time with the game so far, I came across around 2 or 3 summons, one being an old noble with a wet fart of a spell, but hey, he's given it his best. Next up, we have affinities. Affinities allow players to customize their weapons, changing scaling attributes, adding elemental or status inflicting effects, as well as activating Ashes of War. Ashes of War are very similar to weapon arts from previous games, providing a unique attack, with each weapon being able to take on specific Ashes of War options. Smithing does return here, with players initially being able to gain up to +3 on their gear. Further upgrades can be achieved once a smith is found.
Your new face. No matter, it's all the same.
We touched on this briefly, but the jump button allows for a more consistent jump attack. This is performed by jumping and holding the heavy attack button for your weapon of choice. And then finally, we have horseback combat. Players can ride gallantly into enemy territory on the back of Torrent, flashing steel or blasting magic. I didn't have much time with horseback combat, however it looks as if your steed also has a health bar. Take too much damage and you'll either need to wait for a cooldown before Torrent becomes available again, or heal him via a Sacred Flask, Roa Raisin or Sweet Raisin. The learn and adapt style of boss fight that we've become accustomed to also returns in full force for Elden Ring. As before, the game encourages you to learn attack patterns, look for openings, and even utilise summons to stack the odds in your favour, if you're so inclined of course. For me personally, the Tree Sentinel bullied me for a good few attempts before I finally got the better of them, but hey, it's all part and parcel of the Soulsborne experience and we're here for the ride. This only scratches the surface of the gameplay systems at play in Elden Ring. As we explore more of the world, we'll of course drop further content around this. Moving on from gameplay, next up we have performance and graphics. I'm currently playing Elden Ring on PS5 using performance mode. Overall, it seems to run fairly smoothly, however it is worth saying that noticeable frame drops were present for me. These weren't linked to a particularly intensive area or scenario either, so hopefully they can be addressed via future patches. These drops are also said to occur on Xbox, but to a more noticeable degree. There are some options out there to improve frame rate on both consoles, so it's worth having a quick Google if these issues are degrading your experience. From what we've seen, PC also seems to be running into some performance issues unfortunately, from frame rate as well as stuttering. This has led to several reviewers recommending that it's probably better to wait for further patches in the future to smooth out the experience before jumping in. Graphics wise, the game looks incredible. This is mainly down to the art style, with the jaw-dropping backdrops, although the graphical fidelity is no slouch either. There's been a lot of discussion around how Elden Ring looks a bit too similar to Dark Souls 3, in animations as well as graphical fidelity. And whilst there's certainly truth in that, more specifically the animations, I feel this does a disservice to the creativity and the environmental design on offer here. From has once again proven they're king of world and atmosphere design. Stepping out into the first area of the game, you're met with the radiant Erd Tree, shining gloriously and welcoming you to the world of Elden Ring. I think it's pretty safe to say that Elden Ring is a great looking game. Something which fans have come to expect from the masterminds at From is world design. with previous games showcasing intricate interconnected level design as well as vast and varied environments and characters. This looks to have been evolved to the next logical step in Elden Ring, with the open world allowing players to decide which area they'd like to explore first. Personally, my first excursion led me to a small cave filled with creepy little gargoyle-esque creatures. Fighting my way through, I came across flamethrower traps and more devious enemies. I eventually came across a large locked door. We all know what lies beyond. Fighting further in, I came across a lever. Pulling this, I received the message letting me know the door I previously came across is now open to me. Returning to the door, I was met with the all too familiar glow of the fog of war. It was boss time. Inside, I was met with an unsettling figure, a mix of the Cheshire Cat and a weeping angel. Using my glintstone spells, and a little bit of luck, I was able to get the better of the burial tree watchdog, being rewarded with a new summon as a result. Coming across this dungeon felt natural, as there was no waypoint or guide pointing me in its direction. It was my curiosity, and more importantly choice, which led me to this little offshoot. It's this choice to keep the player's curiosity piqued by lacking any sort of map markers outside of the sites of Lost Grace and key areas of the map, which makes the desire to explore that much stronger. Show don't tell is in full effect here, and it works real well. NPCs return in much the same form as they appeared in previous games. During your adventure, you'll come across characters that you can talk to in order to gain further insight into the world, lore, as well as potentially gain a benefit in the form of accessing a new merchant or progressing a quest. It's entirely up to the player as to whether they interact with these NPCs or not. Some players will pursue the gameplay and leave the story at the wayside, whilst others will pursue the quests and lore alongside their journey. The beauty is, both options are viable, just as before. Without going into too many spoilers, a particular NPC of note won't become available up until a certain point, so don't panic if you've not been able to level up just yet. The story looks to be as layered, if not more so, as previous titles. Your players are tarnished, a bottom of the rung adventurer whose call is to obtain the Elden Ring.
The call of long lost grace speaks to us all.
Players who are interested in following the story will find plenty to chew on in the form of item descriptions, NPC dialogue, as well as visual storytelling. Accessibility is something that's long been regarded as a difficult subject for Soulsborne games. How do you make the game more accessible without changing the challenging experience the developers were aiming for? Elden Ring adds some quality of life improvements that are definitely worth mentioning. Firstly, we touched on them earlier, but summons are now accessible and provide players with additional support during boss fights or encounters. This, as well as being able to summon friendly players and NPCs to join the fight, makes it just that little bit easier. Secondly, most bosses can also be left to the wayside until you're at a higher level so to fare better in the fight, an advantage of having an open world setting. Now of course this was present in previous Soulsborne games. You could go to an earlier area and level up perhaps before re-attempting the boss, but Elden Ring encourages players to find alternate routes or other areas for which they haven't yet explored. Thirdly, buttons can be remapped to the player's choice, which is a nice touch. Finally, there are also things like only having to press the sprint button once when riding Torrent, preventing the need to continuously mash or hold the button. There is no difficulty option, and I don't think there will be. Soulsborne games have always thrived on the unique challenge they provide, and I think that this is something the developers want to maintain going forward. So guys, this has been our initial look at Elden Ring. In our opinion, the hype was certainly worth it in this case. We'll be spending many more hours exploring what the game has to offer. If you haven't already, drop us a like if you enjoyed the content, subscribe if you'd like to see more content like this, and drop us a comment about your experiences with Elden Ring so far. We'd love to hear from you. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.